Hi folks, this video is about the Mercury cycle in Sagittarius that is starting today, December the 5th. The Mercury cycle in Leo ends today and the Mercury cycle in Sagittarius starts today. And I'm going to break down what that means and we're going to dive into that in a second. So two quick things. One is housekeeping, but one is a bit of general astrology as well that is relevant to this time. I am offering, for those of you who are not aware of it, 30-minute single topic readings right now for $50. 30 to 40 minute single topic. Single topic means you can keep it focused on a question or things like relationships or career or a topic like that, or a specific house or a specific astrological event like the eclipses and how they're affecting your chart or something along those lines. If you want to talk about a single thing, and regular readings are also available. And if you want to gift readings for holiday presents, you can use something like the single topic reading, or if you would like to gift one of the regular readings, you can use my email address in the description box below to email me there, and I can give you the information. We can take it from there. Okay, so that's the housekeeping bit there. From a general perspective, I will say that if you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, and you have Mercury retrograde, and we have Mercury retrograde going on right now. And this seemed to be a good way of describing this. If you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, Mercury retrograde periods in the skies, like we're dealing with right now, between November 26th to December 15th, and we deal with every 3 months or so, might find you more decisive and conclusive. And you might make decisions where you normally deliberate during the time when Mercury is retrograde in the skies, and then roll out those decisions for the 3 months after. Okay, if you have Mercury direct in your birth chart while Mercury is retrograde, then while Mercury is retrograde, you might be more prone to indecision and greater introspection and greater mulling over of things and greater deliberation. And it's when Mercury is direct that it finds you in a place where you are more able to communicate and transact. So I wanted to say that, especially because today the Sun and a Mercury retrograde conjunct starting the Sagittarius Mercury cycle, I think in the past few videos I have encouraged you to think about what this Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius is about and what it is asking you to act on, whether you have Mercury retrograde or direct in your birth chart. And I realized that if you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, you may have to make some choices with regard to how overt you're going to be. Are you in processing mode, or are you feeling like, no, something needs to be communicated? And it's going to have to be a personal decision. If you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, then it is time to be decisive, in my humble opinion. You can see how this resonates for you. I think it's time to be, if you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, it's time to be decisive, and you've had time to deliberate. And it's a question of where do you want to go now? Where do you, the energies, the mercurial energies related to your personality are likely to be more in sync with regard to decision making, and even certain, at least from a processing perspective, you might reach conclusions more quickly. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. You might find you more decisive. If you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, you're going to, it depends on where you find yourself. Are you mulling things over? And as a reminder, and this is going to come up again in this video, as we've been saying, this Mercury retrograde trines Chiron, squares Saturn, opposes Jupiter. Jupiter is getting ready to square Saturn. So there's something about this energy of the Sun and Mercury right now conjunct today in Sagittarius, opposing Jupiter in Gemini, squaring Saturn in Pisces. That is very relevant and very important to December, and not only to December. It kickstarts, this Mercury retrograde kickstarts a process that takes us to the middle of April, where we're in back-to-back personal planet retrogrades. So old matters need to be dealt with and filed away so that you can more comfortably enter the new by the middle to the end of April, heading towards the end of the first week of June. So that's this idea that something in the Sagittarius part of the chart needs to be decided on, deliberated on. If you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, likely between November 26th to December 15th. If you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, you may be doing more of the deciding, transacting, communication bit that is more conclusive between December 15th, or let's give Mercury a few days to start moving forward, December 17th to 18th, all the way to January the 11th, when Mercury then finally moves into Capricorn. Or you could start some part of the communication now while Mercury is retrograde, only to have things get clarified and sorted through as Mercury goes direct, for things to change or things to shift. So just keep that energy in mind, and whatever's going on in Sagittarius part of the chart needs to be thought through, acted on, cleaned up, so that Saturn can continue to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart, and Jupiter can successfully end a 12-13 year cycle and start an auspicious new 12-13 year cycle in the Gemini part of the chart. Okay, and that energy I go into, this what I just said in a sentence in greater detail in the new moon in Sagittarius video that I did a few days ago. Okay, that video is out, the monthly overview is out. If you scan my past few videos, you'll see what's out there. Okay, now let's talk about this Mercury cycle thing. When a retrograde Mercury and the Sun conjunct, they start a Mercury cycle. It has 4 phases. From the time that a retrograde Mercury and the Sun conjunct to Mercury going direct. So Mercury's retrograde conjuncts the Sun, that starts the cycle. The first phase ends when Mercury is stationary and getting ready to go direct. So December 5th, today, to December 15th, when Mercury is stationary going direct, is phase 1. The Sun continues to move forward, Mercury direct starts to move forward, starts to gather speed, and on February the 9th, phase 2 will end. And I'm going to explain what these phases are. February the 9th, phase 2 will end. Our direct Mercury and the Sun will conjunct on February the 9th of 2025. Then Mercury starts to move ahead of the Sun, and on March the 15th, he's going to go retrograde again. That is the end of phase 3, which is February 9th, when the direct Mercury and Sun conjuncted, to when Mercury goes retrograde again, March the 15th. And the Mercury cycle ends, and a new Mercury cycle begins when the retrograde Mercury and the Sun conjunct again on March the 24th. So phase 1, December 5th to December 15th. Phase 2, December 15th to February the 9th. Phase 3, February the 9th to March 15th, which is the next date when Mercury goes retrograde. And phase 4 ends and a new Mercury cycle begins on March 24th. So phase 4 is March 15th to March 24th. It's a long phase 2 and a short phase 3. Sometimes we have a short phase 2 and a long phase 3, etc. Now, what does all this mean? What is a Mercury cycle? Mercury cycles, I'm realizing, especially if we are feeling aligned. And this is the thing about life. Sometimes we feel aligned, sometimes we don't feel aligned. Sometimes we have the energy and the flow behind us, and sometimes we get into trouble because we're not. I think that when we are feeling aligned and moving forward and doing what we need to be doing and are in sort of general alignment with, I don't know, spiritual forces, if I can use that term. And if you feel like I don't know what he's talking about, then I understand that respect, that you can use whatever language suits you, feeling like the wind is behind your sails, feeling like you haven't just kind of dropped off the merry-go-round of 3D life engagement, and are flowing with it. Especially if you're in flow, a Mercury cycle can be a very powerful cycle, because it's as if with everything going on over it, underneath is this Mercury cycle that's a kind of a foundation, and something is being built. Mercury in a year like 2024, these years, is a very important planet because everything flies on the wings of Mercury. We're no longer at a place where we would wait weeks for something to be delivered to us in the mail. I remember, for example, when I applied to university, you waited to hear. You never knew when something was going to come or not come, whether it was a rejection or an acceptance. Similarly, I remember friends who were sending in job applications this senior year to like consulting firms and things like that. You know, you wait to hear. You wait for the phone to ring. Similarly with friends, letters. It's a different pace altogether. And Mercury, therefore, is not quite in so prominent a footing with regard to how we used to lead our lives as it is today. Today, everything, you know, technology, wireless, the phone, computers, laptops, iPads. It's just everything is dependent on Mercury. And Mercury cycles allow us to build typically something transactional, something concrete, launch something, build something, make something, engage in a communication cycle wherever this communication cycle begins. The last communication cycle began, I think, around August the 18th or thereabouts in the sign of Leo. Now, I will tell you, I was not feeling very in alignment in August. And it was not, the previous Mercury cycles have felt much clearer to me in terms of what they were building than the last Leo one. Previous ones make total sense to me. And you have to understand, when I started to do videos more regularly, and when this channel started to take off, and building this channel, and some people may look at the channel and say, oh, well, it's a comparatively small channel. It is, and that's fine. I'm kind of enjoying right now the familiarity I have with the community that is watching these videos. I'm fortunately not quite at a point where I'm having to deal with a lot of trolls or a lot of this or a lot of that. But a lot of building the channel has been playing out since the end of last year, underneath everything else that's been going on above it. And that has led to concrete results of things being launched, the channel being monetized. And so the thing to alert you to is that's from December the 5th to March the 24th. There's the potential to build something, construct something on the heels and the wheels and the wings of Mercury that could be a next phase or a first phase or of something that you've wanted to concretize, wanted to build. And it may have a dependence on, may be reliant on mercurial manifestations and factors. It may be reliant on technology. It may be reliant on social media. It may be reliant on emails. It may be reliant on travel. It may be reliant on... There's something between December 5th to March the 24th that may come up where you feel like, oh, I get to construct something. And very often with the Mercury cycle, as I said, it's something that is happening underneath the surface. Now, it's interesting. I'm just having my aha very gently. Leo is my first house. I'm just having this aha about what this Mercury cycle since August could have been about, in a sense, as it comes to an end today. Oh, I love it when that happens, when you have that light go off. Because Leo's the first house. It has to do with my identity. It has to do with... Anyway, I will spare you the details there. Fascinating, 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 fascinating. I had a conversation today. It was probably, sort of the best example of a Mercury retrograde conjunct the sun kind of conversation. It was almost as if rather than Mercury retrograde and the sun having the conversation in my psyche, it was an external conversation, but it had that kind of let's check in about this feeling. And that was what led me to think, I wonder if someone has Mercury direct in their birth chart like I do when Mercury is retrograde, whether it basically means that you can be in communication, but the tone and the tenor is much more retrospective, much more introspective, much more processing as opposed to transacting. The first phase, in this case December 5th to 15th, some astrologers believe that it's like a requirements definition phase. If you're going to build something, what are you going to build? And what is on the agenda? What are you trying to meet? What are you trying to create? What does it need to do? if we're not thinking about building some sort of a technical system, a lot of this terminology has that kind of feel to it, as if you're a technical project manager. It could be around just what do you want to construct, and it has a dual purpose right now, because that's a question that even the new moon in Sagittarius would ask on November the 30th, from November 30th to December 30th. What needs to be done here as part of the annual review and the sweep of the personal planets through Sagittarius, through the house occupied by Sagittarius in your chart? What is really fascinating to me about the timing of this Mercury cycle is how much it coincides with the general timing of heading towards the middle of April. I mean, the cycle ends on March the 24th, but it keeps up this energy of somehow the Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, the Mars retrograde between Leo and Cancer, the upcoming, beginning in March, Venus and Mercury retrograde between Aries and Pisces, Saturn trying to stabilize the sign of Pisces, Jupiter ending and creating a new beginning in the Gemini part of the chart, Jupiter and Uranus having conjuncted on April the 20th in the Taurus part of the chart, and initiated a 13-month period of significant change. Significant change. That all of this is energies working together in helping us close out the old and create the new by the middle to the end of April of next year. And as the Sun and Mercury meet up today, I mean, just as a friendly reminder, December the 5th, around that time, we had the Sun square Saturn yesterday. We have Mercury getting ready to square Saturn, tomorrow on December the 6th. The new moon in Sagittarius was square Saturn. A lot of what we're trying to do is stabilize the Pisces part of the chart where Saturn is, so that we can lean into and create what needs to be created as part of the North Node eclipses going through Aries, the last of which the eclipse is going to be on March 29th of next year. I was going to say leaning into or accelerating. I was going to say contributing to, working with the changes initiated by the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on April the 20th, and helping Jupiter create the ending and new beginning in the Gemini part of the chart. The stabilization needs to take place in the Pisces part of the chart, and the expansiveness is indicated by the Aries, Taurus, and Gemini part of the chart. And a lot of these retrogrades all the retrogrades that we're dealing with the personal planets, Mercury, Mars starting tomorrow, Mercury and Venus in March and April, are all part of this energy that are helping to create certain endings so we can land into the new more comfortably and decisively. So the Mercury-Sun conjunction that occurs today, we can comfortably say squares Saturn. And that energy, excuse me, I'm so tired of being a little bit unwell. And that energy of starting Mercury cycle today through March the 24th, that square Saturn, feels totally understandable to me, given the astrology of the time to the middle of April. Remember that as Venus and Mercury go retrograde between Aries and Pisces, they're at least going to go over Neptune 3 times. They might even conjunct with Saturn 3 times. I should really look into the astrology of those 2 retrogrades. The time is coming up. I mean, it's not happening till March, but still worth looking at. So again, we're now starting to really enter into timelines, and we will again with the Mars retrograde tomorrow. that now are cycles that are taking us to the middle to the end of April. We're there. Change is afoot. We're not contemplating change. We're not thinking about change. We're not wondering how it's going to occur. Like it or not, that process is starting and is going to continue to intensify as we move through December into January, into February, and into March, till the middle of April. Old things that are past their due date and are taking up energetic space need to be retired and cleaned up and closed out. Not a very straightforward process. If it was, we would have taken care of some of this between October and March, October of 23 and March of 24. But now we get to, and new things, whatever it is that we've been trying to land towards, that journey from March, April of 23 to the end of the first week of June of next year, can now start to be created as the old things retire. And this Mercury cycle squaring Saturn and the Sun opposes Jupiter on December the 7th. Mercury opposed Jupiter on December the 4th. It's the same. It's the new moon story all over again. It's as if the new moon in Sagittarius has a certain timeline that takes us to December the 30th. And then this Mercury cycle in Sagittarius that starts today, squaring Saturn, opposing Jupiter, takes us all the way to March the 24th. What needs to be handled in the Sagittarius part of the chart, of your chart, my friends? Now, it could be multiple things, because in every house there could be multiple topics, not 500 topics, 3, 4, 5 topics. So there could be something from the past that needs to be cleaned up and something new that needs to be created. Typically with Mercury cycles, we are creating something new. We're building something into the next phase. Now, it could be that we are dealing with old issues and giving them a facelift, or bringing them up to date with where we want them to be today, or now, or by the middle of March. Or it could be something new that you determine, or that comes into the picture between now and December the 15th, that you start to build on. That takes you to about March 24th. Irrespective of whatever these tasks are, again, just like the new moon and this time period in December and this Mercury retrograde, contribute to Jupiter ending and starting a 12, 13-year cycle in the Gemini part of the chart, and Saturn stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart. December 5th to 15th, what needs to be done? What are your goals? What do you want to achieve? What is this project about? December 15th to February 9th is execution, building something. February 9th to March 15th is taking what is built and building on it, refining it based on how it is working. So December 5th to 15th, requirements definition. December 15th to February 9th, building a prototype or an alpha or a beta version of something. February 9th to March 15th, doing a test launch of it and refining it. March 15th to March 24th, putting the final touches. It can launch by March 15th, it can launch by March 24th. That there is your Mercury cycle in Sagittarius. And you might say, why are we doing a special video on this? We could have just focused on the Mercury and the Sun conjuncting, which I did in yesterday's weekly overview. So do take a look at that. I would. But I just want to do this video and have it out there so that you have it for reference. It's just starting today. If, as the next couple of weeks, this particular Mercury retrograde, I have to say, feels very tight. November 26th to December 15th feels like a very tightly contained 3 weeks. It feels like we're in the middle of it. By the end of this week, we'll be in the final week. And hopefully, before we know it, we will be at December the 15th and we'll be through it. Lovely. But yeah, I do want you to be, I would like those of you who are astrology aficionados or who are intrigued by stuff like that, just take a look at what house Sagittarius sits in your chart. And just think about what it is. Now, it could be that between now and December 15th, or now and the end of the year, or in early January, something comes along that makes you feel like, oh, I need to react to this. I need to work with this. I need to build. Something has happened that is allowing me to, for me, I was doing my videos and then I did some videos, and for some reason, in January of this year especially, they just started to gather a certain amount of momentum, and I think there were a few videos I did that started to bring more attention to the channel. And every now and then it happens that I'll post something and it just sort of brings a new set of people into, something along those lines. Um, but so that was an outside stimulus that I was not necessarily expecting or didn't plan for. I didn't execute. I didn't create a video thinking, oh, this is going to get a lot of hits or this is going to get a lot of views. But something did. And so whatever that thing was that came in, then gave me something to work with, gave me something to respond to, gave me something to create towards. And it's not as if it wasn't being created all along. But all of a sudden I was just like, oh wow, the channel is growing. Some YouTube something has hit. Some algorithmic thing has happened where it's starting to move. And again, some of you might look at it and go, that's not a lot of subscribe. Whatever that means to you, it was clear what it meant to me. It has been, for me, sort of the highlight of 2024, and especially by virtue of the people that I've met virtually through it, the people for whom I've done readings, the people who leave comments, the people, it's become, sometimes online communities are helpful because they allow us to bring the best of us, in a certain sense, to a form where we're engaging with people with whom we're not doing our daily grind. And so they don't get to see the triggered parts of us. They don't get to see the parts of us that are exhausted. We're able to bring to a community online and receive from a community a certain support, a certain civility that, because there's a distance, because there are boundaries, because people can check in and give what they feel comfortable giving and take what they're comfortable taking. And so there's a comfort with visiting, having a communion, and then going back to whatever it is that we're doing that can keep things in a healthy and a constructive and a supportive place. And that's been a lovely gift this year. So keep an eye out for, in the Sagittarius part of the chart, but between December 5th onwards, December 5th to 15th, or maybe, given the fact that it's the holidays, give it to the beginning of January, just to see if something comes up. Now, it could be, because the Mercury cycle and the Sun-Mercury conjunction today is opposing Jupiter and squaring Saturn, it could just be a signal to say you're going to get a certain amount done in stabilizing the Sagittarius part of the chart in Mercury retrograde and the month of Sagittarius till November 30th. And there's going to be another push to build or construct something out of all of this that is going to take you to March the 24th. And it's all the same thing. It's whatever it is that you need to bring into alignment in the Sagittarius part of the chart. Sometimes bringing into alignment means building something. Sometimes bringing a house into alignment means knowing what needs to be left behind. It can also be two different things. The Mercury retrograde and the new moon is giving you an opportunity during December to address something. And the Mercury cycle is talking about constructing something related to the Sagittarius part of the chart. It could be two separate things. I actually think, given the astrology of it, I think there's a strong possibility that at least there could be something new that you are constructing, but it could be that as you bring the Sagittarius part of the chart into alignment as a result of this new moon and this Mercury retrograde, you embark on you embark on building something with all of that through March 24th as well. That is going to help Saturn stabilize the Pisces part of the chart and help Jupiter end a 12-13 cycle, start a 12-13 cycle in the Gemini part of the chart. It could also be something new and constructive that comes up, that you construct using mercurial forces and archetypal mercurial energies, travel, commuting, cars, vehicles, messages, emails, interviews, sales, transactions, technology, social media, etc. Writing, communicating, teaching, skill acquisition, etc., etc., etc. Even, if you're a painter looking for the right galleries. Now, it depends on which house is occupied by Sagittarius in your chart, but I'm giving you examples. It doesn't have to be looking for a job. It could be looking for the right kind of professional partners. If Sagittarius is in your 8th house and you're dealing with some sort of a taxation issue, it could be finding the right professional partner to work with in order to resolve something and then to move in that direction. If you are a writer, a sculptor, an actor, a painter, it could be looking for the appropriate manager or agent or publicist. It could also have, it doesn't just have to be, as I said, interviewing for a job necessarily. So what needs to be built in the Sagittarius part of the chart? And you might, the Mercury cycle might have, part of the energy might have to do with helping Saturn stabilize the Pisces part of the chart, and Jupiter creates this ending and new beginning. And that's very much on point with this Mercury retrograde and this new moon and the month of Sagittarius in December 2024. But there could be something new that you decide to construct as well. Okay, that is what I wanted to leave you with for this Mercury cycle in Sagittarius. I hope you found that intriguing. Just kind of play with the energy and see if it resonates. As I said, $50 single topic, 30 to 40 minute astrology readings are available. Use my email address below to inquire about that, my regular readings, or if you want to gift for the holidays, a 30-minute reading or a full reading. You please feel free to use the thanks button underneath this video to contribute to the channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Next to the subscribe button, wiggly bell, hover over the bell on top, wiggly bell, click on that, and you'll be notified whenever I do new videos. And yeah, feel free to leave a comment or like the video. It's a free way in which you can contribute to the channel, and likes and comments give the video greater circulation on YouTube. At least that's my understanding. And we will leave it at that. There's a link I'm going to place at the end of this video. If you want to know more about what the single topic reading is about, I did this video about it, and so I'll place a link to that as well, and a link to my last couple of videos so you can check that stuff out. All right, I think the plan tomorrow, to the best of my ability, is to do a quick recap and a reminder on Mars retrograde. I've already done a video on Mars. I think it's time for a quick refresher as Mars goes retrograde. And then on Sunday, it might be time for the next weekly overview. And next week, we start to head towards that Gemini full moon. And if you've seen that new moon in Sag video, you know that Gemini full moon has a kind of there's new moons and full moons. New moons in a certain part of the chart, followed 2 weeks later by a full moon in the opposite part of the chart, are always connected. But with the Sagittarius new moon and the Gemini full moon, the connection is even more pronounced, given the fact that the rulers of the new moon and the full moon are in each other's houses. Jupiter, who rules Sagittarius, is in Gemini, and Mercury, who rules Gemini, is in Sagittarius. So that mutual reception kind of gives it all sort of greater intensity as we move ahead into next week. Everything is sort of pointing to, even if you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, everything is pointing to some form of communication occurring over the next 10 days or so, even if you're ruminative. Just my opinion. All right, folks. Excuse me. And by the way, this is coming to me, so I'm going to say it. if someone is keen to understand just how the Mercury retrograde might apply to them, or these retrogrades might apply to them, that could be used as a single topic thing as well. It's not just a kind of a deliberate sales pitch. It was just when I've learned when I do readings, and if something comes up as an idea, to go ahead and mention it. So I will mention that there. All right, folks, till tomorrow when I do that Mars retrograde video. Take care.